Hi, and welcome back to SEO On Air. I'm your host, Aaron, and today we have Lawrence Hitches, the general manager at Studio Hawk, with us. We talk about how SEO is changing, how Google is changing, and how AI is coming in between. I hope you enjoy this episode. You've had quite a few wins in your life, and I'm trying my best to segue into the actual podcast. Uh, One of those wins is actually being at Studio Hawk, the general manager, and you've been there for like a while now. So I wanted to know, how exactly did you get in, and what exactly were you doing before that?
What I was doing before that wasn't that interesting. But how I got into it is I moved to Melbourne um, and was just looking for a job in digital marketing. And this role came up. It was very nondescript and I actually put on my resume at the time SEO specialist, but I wasn't in any sense of the word. I had worked in search assessment for Bing, but it wasn't anything in terms of like actually optimizing the website. It's more of reviewing the search results on the other end. I met Harry, our founder, said, "Hey, can I have a job?" Started off 3 days a week, part time, and then from that point, never really stopped. So went full time, got promoted to a specialist, then a senior specialist, then a team leader, and ended up becoming general manager a couple of years ago. And yeah, I've been here 5 years, and yeah, it's been the most incredible last 5 years. It's in terms of a time period ever. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Did you ever want to do something beyond digital marketing, or did you feel like this was your calling once you got to it?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a comedian for some reason, but then I realized I wasn't actually that funny. And then what did I want to do? I always wanted to do my own thing, but I wasn't exactly sure what that was. Um, in terms of like creation of content, things like that really interest me. But then I landed on SEO, and I think it's just more of the growth that you can see through doing that kind of practice in the art form that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the puzzle and the challenge. Like we're talking about, like someone who's like a lifelong gamer as well, I find SEO like the ultimate equivalent to like a video game where you're grinding out a lot of things and it's a long gratification effect when you do get those results in. But it feels that kind of puzzle solving, that problem solving part of my brain that I really enjoy.
Yeah, and the same thing with the grind in games. If you do kind of leave it for like a month or two, you kind of lose a lot that you kind of covered.
New things come out and you're like, damn it, I should have just kept going.
Right, right. But in terms of, let's say, what you've been working at with Studio Hawk, what exactly are some of the, let's say, services that they offer, and how exactly those services kind of help other businesses or people?
Yeah, so at Studio, we just do SEO. So we work really directly with our clients. We pair them up with our SEO specialist team. Uh, First step is always involved is looking at the SEO strategy. Is this website feasibly a good fit for SEO? And then we do the standard things that we do around that. So technical auditing, looking at the keywords that they're currently ranking for and what they're trying to achieve, aligning up with the business goals, and then coming up with a roadmap across that, which can involve a lot of technical work. So diving into doing a big migration or building out a content strategy through keyword searches or something completely curveball like, hey, we want to migrate this potential website and merge it into our own because we built this separately. It has its standard plays, but we have to tailor that strategy directly with the client as well, and just try to match up what they're trying to do. So when we jump in to talking to a new website owner or a new client, it's just about what are you actually trying to achieve here, and can we help you do that? And can our specialists jump in and actually get involved in your business to make that pathway possible? Um, yeah, and in terms of that services wise, it's technical SEO, it's content strategy, it's links as well, doing outreach, and just formulating anything that will really get results through to the website and make sure a website ranks well.
And in the 5 years you've been at Studio Hawk, what are some of the, let's say, I wouldn't say mistakes, but some of the issues that you've come across when dealing with some clients?
I think, particularly in Australia, it's gotten better over the last 5 years. But when I started, the education level around SEO was pretty low. Like we spent more of our time educating what we could do rather than doing what we could do. Even
Right.
something as simple as why would you put a keyword in a title tag? I want to put what I want to do in a title tag. It's like, well, you should put a keyword in there and you actually see some results. Whereas I know in the US, the SEO industry is so much bigger in the UK as well. In Australia, it was really that grassroots movement. And now there are a lot more SEO agencies, a lot more people doing SEO, and the community's built
Right.
out. But the mistakes I guess we learned along the way is trying to get a little bit too far ahead of ourselves and just bringing it back to first principles of let's educate people first. And that's why we did something like we built out Hawk Academy as part of that too, to educate SEO in first, rather than just saying like, yeah, we can obviously get you results, but people not understanding the why and the how, so
Right.
they could buy into that journey at the same time. It's that effect that you really need to bring someone on board for what you're doing and educate them.
What exactly would you come to do if, let's say, a client does refuse the education part of it because they believe they know more?
That's a really good question, actually. So I've actually come across that a fair few times where someone engages with us and say, "Hey, Shooterhawk, what can you do?" And they come in with a lot of, let's say, a lot of education, like they know their stuff really well, or they think they know their stuff really well. When in SEO, the whole crux of it is almost that gray area of actually trying to prove out what's the right strategy or not. There's some things that make sense. Make sure your website is indexable. That's the first way to get onto Google. But
Yeah.
whether or not, let's say, a URL structure or a heading structure is what's more beneficial, that debate could actually, I've been in that debate before with some employees saying, you know, whatever is really going to move the needle is where I really lean, and
Right.
what's proven to be effective as well. And giving it also the time and space to investigate those types of issues often is the first protocol for me. But yeah, when people do come in, they have some expectations of even what was done 5 years ago and still thinking that's the case today. That's why
Right.
it's good to specialize in this, because it's the constant learning aspect of SEO that we're experiencing all the time. Again, 5 years, everything has changed since I particularly started in SEO.
One question I think we can probably ask is that, like you've mentioned, there are a lot of changes that keep happening in
Mm.
SEO, and if you're not really on top of it, you're going to be left behind in the dust.
Yeah,
So one thing is, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen in this year?
this changes every month pretty much. Even
So up
even
until
late
June, that.
up until June, I know in the last month I've seen this as well. The search results are going crazy right now. There's a lot of activity around some of the classic sensors that people use to check in on how search results are going. I think Google is really shaking things up lately, but even in the last 6 months, let's say 6 months to a year, introducing concepts like extra E on EAT. Even Google confirming recently about topical authority for local news. I think that even the changes are a lot more confirmation of what SEO surmised to be the case with some strategies, but there's a lot of more interactivity into some of the older concepts and actually bringing them to light and saying, yeah, this is the thing that you need to be considering as well, which we sometimes in SEO don't have that much clarity, but seeing something like them say topical authority when topical authority was something that SEOs talked about was like, oh, okay, so there was really a thing at the end of the day. It's interesting how Google might use language or things like that in the developer guidelines to say something, but not exactly say it. So really testing those theories out seems to be the case always.
Yeah, I think even the previous guest kind of said that the issue with most SEO people is that we don't really know what changes are being made. We
Hmm.
just know that a change has been made, and now go figure out what change that is and
Yeah,
how you can apply it to your website.
yeah.
But I think in specifics to topical authority and EAT, what exactly what are some steps that an SEO or a content writer or creator can take to kind of make sure their website can rank better?
So taking a step back and just making sure that anything you're doing on the website is really going to be value for a user, and it's coming from a place of, you know, at the end of the day, people are trying to make websites to generate traffic, to generate revenue as well. But if you do have a purpose behind what you're doing, your brand's doing as well. If you're in the fitness industry, you obviously really care about people's fitness. Making sure that you're really making that known through the way you're projecting your brand and also you as a person. Let's say you're the business owner or one of the people writing the articles and content, showing your credentials is pretty much a thing that just necessarily has to happen when you look at a concept like EAT and how they're looking at content these days. Like anyone can write a fitness article. I could write one right now using the help of a couple of AI friends. But if I was to post that, it's not going to be as valid as someone who's got 30 years of fitness, like my Pilates instructor who's got a lot of years of
Right.
experience on top of me as well. So just being way more conscious of that. If you're putting out really high quality content, you're always going to be in a good spot, and also doing it consistently as well with the right intentions behind that, and not being. I mean, Google call it out pretty directly: is don't be manipulative to search engines, which I don't believe a lot of people go with the intent to do, especially small brands or
Right.
large brands. But just making sure that okay, we're not just putting up something for the sake of it; it actually has value and intent behind it.
Now that you mentioned the AI tools, isn't there a way to possibly, well, not manipulate, but change the way you use the tools to pretty much bring in that experience?
So something you could use the tools for is validating opinions, fact checking things that are behind the content as well. The thing about AI tools, and I was thinking about this the other day. Sometimes they pretty much tell you what you want to hear. Like if you say you did something wrong, they'll definitely believe you and not fight back on that aspect. So if you're feeding it the information that brings in actually some value and some expertise and some experience, you can actually utilize AI to really speed up the productivity and processes behind that content creation. But what Google's gearing more towards, and you see this through the language they're using for SG and Google perspectives, is that first touch, that human, that people experience, even just putting the face behind it as well, that you can't exactly manipulate unless you had a really good. I mean, the AI tools around imagery are getting pretty good. You can't really fake a person that exists. You can't fake their college degrees or their credentials or if they appear in like a YouTube video, you can't
Right.
well, not yet, maybe not yet, but there's people at the end of the day that need to be generating this content from some value and experience, the real life experience. So it's not really a way to get around that, I think, at the end of the day.
What if I told you that we use three tools to create me and I'm actually an AI bot?
I would be like, I wouldn't be surprised in some ways. I'll be very surprised in others how responsive you are and
Right, right.
how eloquent you are. But we may get to
That's
that
why there's
stage.
a 1 second lag, so I can go and input the responses.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. Um, but I think even talking a bit more, bigger level about AI, people are going to start asking the question maybe 6 months to a year's time, or maybe even longer. Am I talking to a real person? Like, does this person actually exist? And maybe we'll have to do things like verify, like, here's my passport, or just do some sort of verification that you are actually a human. Because
Right.
at that point, how can you trust anyone? I think about that when people say, "Hey, I can just AI my entire SEO strategy." It's like, well, you can't technically because there's no responsiveness there unless it got to the level where, yeah, again, like you could fake an entire person and personality, but if you tried to like, hey, let's go meet up for a coffee and they can't, you'd be like, all right, I know something's up now.
But one thing that we've kind of noticed is that for the most part of it, AI can be as helpful as you need it to be. While it might not, again, provide the exact experience that you're looking for when doing a Google search, it still can provide that information that's kind of readily available.
Hmm.
If people who are experienced use AI, can they get over that EEAT that way? They don't basically write it; they just put in their experience into the AI
Yeah,
tool, and then the tool.
yeah, I that's where I think the whole generative AI in terms of its use for SEO is the most valuable, is the productivity aspect, where you could take your entire experience being a dietitian, input it into an AI tool, and then utilize that as a database when you do have the task to create an article, and you can actually pull on experience with a particular patient and reference that as part of that and actually generate that into a new article. So using the human brain essentially and dumping that into an AI tool is actually quite useful in actually utilizing that to generate the experience levels that you need to inject into content. It's a really good
Yeah.
use case actually.
Can I give you an example? I tried to, just for the fun of it, write a script, a one-page script for what if Nicolas Cage was Batman. I just took some of the top 10 or 15 quotes from Nicolas Cage and I said, use this to kind of analyze his
Yeah.
speech
Yep.
and then create what he would be if he was Batman. And it just, I think a little bit better than what I would have come up with. It kind of wrote a whole dialogue and a script for what Nicolas Cage would be as Batman. And I was just blown away by it. Like I couldn't come up with that by myself for sure.
Yeah. And did you send that to like a Hollywood director and
Oh
that's
no, I
getting
read it the next day and I was like, wait a minute, this isn't that great. So
it was
that's another thing I
impressive
was.
for what it generated, but then when you actually, I mean, that could be said through a lot of AIs. Like you initially look at it and go, I just got a 2,000 word article in the click of a button. You're like, wow, that's great. And you actually read it and you go, this
Huh.
needs a bit of love. This needs some help.
And that's where I came to the next part of the question, which is how much of this AI tools can we actually trust, like in terms of accuracy?
Accuracy, that's a big question because all these, these language model tools, you know, that's why I said before about it kind of tells you what you want to hear if you really pushed it. So if you're pumping in like all this content and pumping in all these prompts, and you don't take that care and awareness to question what you're being delivered back, you might get the misread, you might get the misfire that actually makes your content or whatever you're utilizing it for not valuable anymore. So it, I think there was a quote the other day from Gary Iles that said, "Be really careful about, let's say, using an AI tool to diagnose SEO issues, because the tool might actually hunt for issues that don't actually exist and can lead you in a really different path, because you're asking it, hey, are there any issues here? You know, when you ask a friend like, "How you doing?" and they're like, "Oh, I'm all good," you kind of take that on face value.
Right.
But if you were really to prompt and ask them, "Hey, how everything going?" they might dig up problems that they didn't actually even want to talk about or didn't actually exist for the purpose of trying to satisfy your
Right.
question. It's kind of like that when I think about it. Like, just be really careful about how you use the tools and really curate and really think about what you're trying to ask it and receiving back, and even question what you get receiving back as well, just so you're not
Yeah.
following something blindly as well. You have to take a step back and go through an approval process in your own brain if it's valuable.
Yeah, I think one thing that we've been saying at our company is that if you put in garbage, you're going to get back garbage.
Pretty much.
So you need to be really good in what you're prompting, and then keep a good keen eye to what you're getting back, so that you're not,
Yeah.
just copy
Don't
pasting
copy
more
paste
garbage
it. Yeah.
everywhere. But one thing we've noticed is that if there are a lot of people using ChatGPT, and I think there are a lot of them using other AI tools as well,
Mhm.
how does it change in terms of ranking factors if everyone is having like a standard type of content? Will
In
it
terms of,
mean
yeah,
that only experienced sites and published articles will only those rank, or can it be possible for those who are using AI tools to somehow use in some experience somewhere or the other to also push their articles to rank?
I think in anything it's going to be based on factors as well, because we do know there's so many factors. Like, I've seen websites with the most horrible technical SEO that you've ever seen, yet they still rank really well because they have so much domain authority. They have so much just overall authority in a particular space. Like, I don't see a website like Apple not ranking for iPhone. Like, it's just impossible for that to happen. When it comes to like the content ranking, and there's still going to be some variation between quality of content. Really, who I think essentially what's going to happen is the people that provide unique and fresh and insightful information that isn't necessarily that known to search engines previously. Let's say it's an article about how to swing a golf club in a particular way. If someone comes in and said, "Hey, this is a particular method that I developed that's something new, that's quite credible, and it's backed by research and things like that," to me, I think of that from a human perspective. I would really rather read that than the same article about golf swings or golf clubs that has been generated 10 times by the same prompt or something like that. So it's really that hunt and that need for insightful and original information um, that's resourced from, guess what, humans at the end of the day. So when it comes to like what's going to matter is just that content quality has to increase, and also the uniqueness of that content is going to be more of a factor when it comes to looking at content optimization.
So, as a user, how will I know if content is AI generated or human generated? How will I be able to make that difference?
Like, from what I've seen of those AI detectors, it's like you can put in anything and it's going to tell you, like, it'll misfire. What?
Yeah, we had someone who used a quote from the Bible and said this is AI
Yeah.
written, and we were just like, oh wait, well now what do we do?
Exactly. Um, you just have to look at those other factors of the content. Like, if it's got good like, you think about it from a crawler's perspective, if it's got a good heading structure, it's got the relevant keywords, it's crawlable, title tag, meta description, that can all be generated by AI or a human. Just AI could probably do it faster and a little bit better because of looking to those different factors. When you actually look, let's say we're looking through an article and we see a video, let's say, of a person talking about the content of that article, and then we see an image, and then we see a link to a case study and a link to a testimonial about that particular thing they're writing about, that's how you can say, all right, cool. Maybe this article was completely written by AI with the right prompts, but it's coming from a valuable resource that can back that information in. But when it
Right.
comes to, like, let's say you're a dietitian and people are asking, like, what are the top 10 diet tips? It's pretty much all the same thing that people have written about in the history of dietitian, probably, maybe in some developments in the recent years.
Right.
But when you get to like the really valuable stuff that isn't known to Google or isn't directly known to users that immediately, that's where you go, all right, cool. I know I'm reading something that's actually a little bit different, and I like that. And I think Google's going to really value that content at the end of the day.
But we've talked a lot about AI and Google in specific. There's a lot of developments for both fields in general. I think we can talk about the first part of it, which would be, I think, the search generative experience.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is Google doing there, and how much different is it going to be in the future?
What Google's trying to do there, I think they can only really answer that question themselves. But I see it as like their response to being, let's say, threatened by a tool like ChatGPT or what Bing are doing as well. Um, in terms of like the overall scope of how it performs right now, it's that generated response initially. It's got citation, or it's got links to different resources. Let's say you're searching for sneakers. Then you start combing through and you're like, all right, there's some e-commerce results here and some resources on the side. Some of those actually still being things like affiliate websites and things like that, integrated with Google Shopping, the sponsored ads on that SGE result as well. Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting to see what's going to happen. Like doing from some minor testing, the I think the opinion overall in the SEO community has been pretty 50-50, pretty lukewarm response, you might say, that
Right.
I can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it a more exciting and search experience that's more conversational. But then also, is it that good? Like, are people actually going to engage with it as much? And then it's like with anything, like you go really complex with what you're trying to show and perform, but then you actually come back to real basics and go, people just want to know if they want to shop for sneakers, to click on a link and then buy some sneakers. They don't need an explanation of what a sneaker is. They don't need some
Right.
superfluous information. And its impact to search is pretty unknown right now. I think there's still a lot more testing that needs to be done, and I don't exactly know what their plan is to release it or how they're going to roll it out nationwide or globally, because it's such a significant change in search results if you see what the
Right.
actual result is performing as well. So it's really like a wait and see situation where we're really testing out what searches are coming up when we test things out.
And in terms of kind of optimizing content for it, since it's not really that well known, we don't really have a good idea to kind of, work around it, I guess, right?
Um, I think you stick back to, all right, is the content you're creating really valuable? Is my website set up with the fundamentals of SEO? Because people do miss out that stuff a lot when you're dealing with massive crawl issues or massive issues around the website. Instead of like concentrating on like how we're going to prepare for SG, is just like, should we move to Shopify because it's such a clean platform that's going to make up a website more productive. Um, I think inevitably you're really going to have to look at things like EAT to really qualify and run that through that criteria to make sure that it's good enough to rank in that particular generated response. Using things like diversifying your content, using podcasts and videos and webinars and real life situations and practical information. Um, Even complementing your current SEO strategy with social media videos on YouTube and Instagram, and just building out those fundamental entities in terms of the fundamental links that would associate you with being a really high quality brand. Trying to gain a knowledge panel as well. Like a lot of brands that would start out today probably have a really long road to go, but there's some big brands out there that don't even have that generated knowledge panel because they haven't put the effort in or haven't even put on the organizational schema that would need to qualify that result as well. Um, and just really elevating content strategy overall. Like if you're a small business right now, you're not out of the game. You just need to make sure that you're not pumping out the same blogs that you used to. You're actually putting 10 to 20 more hours into actually developing that content, and maybe putting time aside to film a short video that would supplement that content really well. So when Google scrollers hit into it, they see a video, they see the content behind it with the right heading structure and go, this is pretty insightful. We might put that in our generated response.
So, in comparison to, let's say, a year and a half ago, where AI wasn't as rampant as it is today, how much of these practices would you say are the same versus new fold practices?
Fundamentally, it's kind of all the same, but new practices would be, um, and this is something what I like using AI tools for, is really verifying what you're doing. So feeding it prompts and saying, compare my article against another article. Is this article definitively better based on this particular criteria that Google have given? Like, what's great is you can actually go into Google's developer guidelines and they say things like, make sure this content has X, Y, and Z. So if you gave ChatGPT that information and said, make sure that all my content has this particular thing, it's just adding more layers and controls and measures against what you're doing. So you're not just blindly just shooting out things that might work. You have, you can't really debate against Google when well, Google can't really debate against you when you do have all the things ticked off that would naturally make that content rise to the top, and you verified that through a tool as well.
Yeah, I think technically, yes. I mean, as you know, ChatGPT could be like your very own SEO assistant in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah.
its own proofreading as well.
Could be your devil's advocate as well against any crazy ideas you have around what may be better or may not be better.
Where do you stand on the ethics of it, and how will the future of AI kind of work into that way? Will there be like laws around it now?
I'm surprised the government hasn't, like, especially in Australia, the government hasn't really gotten involved yet. You see that in the universities where they're saying you can't use AI tools to write essays and things like that. But how are you supposed to police that and control that? And then you know if you put in something and submitted something as an essay, you could put it into an AI detector and it will tell you, yeah, AI wrote this, but it could completely be handwritten. It was just really good, and then you go, well, what the hell's the point? In terms of like where it's going, like in terms of rules, I think naturally, like I said before, people are going to be really sure that whatever is being given to them is written by a human or has that human touch on top of it as well. Like, let's say in universities, just only doing in-person exams that are handwritten and things like that, just to or doing presentations as the final essay and things like that. You take that and you apply that against the whole world. Um, it's such a powerful tool that used in the right hands can be amazing and really beneficial, and used in the wrong hands can be quite, nefarious and
Right.
evil in some ways. Where the line is right now, I think naturally because it's so new, like what the tools like this have only been out, especially in this format for the last 6 months. We're still
Yeah.
pretty early on. Like, what if it takes another year for people to really define what that line actually is, and for the humanity to collectively go, all right, we've gone too far. We've gone too far. We need to take this a couple steps back, because that may actually happen. That one day we just go, we've now video generated everyone. I don't know who I'm talking to or what's real anymore. The
Right.
movie industry is now like I can just create a Marvel movie that's equivalent to a $500 million production with just one prompt. Like, what am I what do I do anymore with my life, because everything can be just done so easily.
I'm glad you kind of brought up Marvel because they recently used AI to create their opening
Yeah,
sequence for the new show. So it kind of brings back to the whole what happens then if a multi-million, well, billion-dollar industry like Marvel itself start using AI and push away the actual graphic designers and humans to opt in for an actual AI replacement instead, which would be cheaper, faster,
yeah,
not better in quality maybe, but like just more efficient in some ways.
yeah, yeah. They probably looked at it as like, this is cool. They also probably save some money and some really some graphic design. But yeah, you lose a bit of credibility to an audience and go, people go, oh, now they're using AI. Like, what about the artists that were probably involved in this? So that might be
And
potentially losing jobs out of
And likewise, with the whole writer strike going on,
it.
people might just shift into now writing movies with AI.
Yeah. So that movie script that you got developing is going to be something to work
Gotta
on next year.
gotta save it and continue working on that.
Yeah, yeah,
But that's the kind of I think atmosphere we do have right now, where there are, like you said, 50% of people who are very much on board and are pushing for it to keep on advancing, and then
yeah.
there's the other 50% who are like, "Oh no, Skynet is going to be the next one." What would be your, I think, just to kind of tie this off, what would be your words of wisdom to anyone who kind of fear AI?
For your AI, I think embrace change. In some ways, AI is here to stay, and you see people who are working, let's say, creative industries that might go, I'm only going to ever use, the handwritten stuff that I've created before. But then when you're up against a particular industry or a particular, let's say a competitor that can do things more efficiently and quickly because they found a great process and produce, let's say, the equivalent same level of quality, you kind of go, it's like typewriters versus the computer. The computer was definitively better and people adapted to using it. And people say what they will about using technology these days, but it just becomes what part of work. Like, if in the next year people haven't really caught on to AI and people will start using it in the day-to-day operations as a little assistant, as a little grammar checker or an email writer or an idea writer, I'd be really surprised. But yeah, you potentially are slowing your own career or progression down in that way. So like with anything, like with the internet coming out, you know, whatever 20, 30 years ago, people going, you know, I'm going to the library instead. It's like people still go to libraries, right? But
No, true that.
people naturally still get their information a lot quicker by googling it, which is really beneficial for my industry. But you know, in the future, I think we're going to have to adapt and change as part of it. There's parts of it where it's really exciting. There's parts of it where you go, man, I actually really don't know where this is heading. But then you wake up the next day and it changes again, and you go, right. As long as I keep doing the right things and learning about this and constantly learning, I have nothing to fear really.
Go back to talk about changes in Google.
Mm,
Another thing that they kind of pushed out was the perspectives thing.
yeah.
And I want to know, again, one, what exactly is Google Perspectives? And two, what exactly should we be expecting from it?
What exactly is perspectives is I see it as another response to the TikTok generation, you know, short form video content being quite popular, and also opinion based content being something more insightful for users at the end of the day. When you're reading something about what examples have used, like barbecuing, you know, makes a beef brisket. You want to get advice. You want to read something really credible and like a step-by-step recipe, but also you might jump on a Reddit and go, I used this spice instead of this spice, and this was the effect. A user might go, you know, that's pretty cool. I like that result. The same with this short form video content. You know, right now we know that TikTok is becoming a search engine where people are searching up information on those platforms, which is probably taking a bit of market. I don't know how much, but we definitely know that it would take some market share away from Google, especially in the younger demographics. So, perspectives is a way for Google to introduce literally perspectives from humans into their search results. Um, so, in terms of what to expect, right now I see it because they're releasing so much stuff. Like the SGE, we've got Google perspectives going on at the same time. They're really testing out maybe what's going to work in the future and what users are going to be more receptive to. And I see that as okay, that's just another avenue. And you know, the background play was they've got YouTube Shorts. They're another response to TikTok as well, where people are getting the short form bite information through video content. That they can introduce as part of that platform as well. So they're really funneling users in different ways to what they maybe think was going to be really good information or what's going to provide the most value, and inevitably provide the most traffic to the user, to the website or whatever content creator they're going to send that traffic to at the end of the day.
I think you touched upon this before, but like the new kind of modern strategies to include perspectives as well would be to take up more social media friendly stuff,
Yeah,
be on TikTok, be on YouTube as well, start promoting it as much as you can. But
yeah.
what are some other steps that you could probably take?
Other steps you could take is, you know, thinking about in terms of content, different perspectives that you could bring in, like pun perspectives. You know, when we're talking about the differences between particular products, using expert commentary and things like that as part of that content, citing things like Reddit posts, citing information like Quora. Even using that information from Quora or Reddit, I know that's a really tried and true, you know, long tail keyword strategy is to go into those forums and find those particular keyword searches that are relevant to your niche and build on those as well.
Right.
So yeah, it's just a combination of just adding that extra little spice to your content, and also probably making it really fun and engaging as well. So when a user clicks onto it, even though if it's a boring subject about like how to change your oil, it's something still that's quite engaging, and can take you on a bit of a journey on to their perspective.
And is there a way to kind of use the same strategy but for a broader aspect? So to kind of use TikTok and YouTube to kind of push it more than just Google search, to kind of push it on, let's say, on other platforms itself.
Yeah, other platforms you would really need to build out like a different arsenal of platforms like LinkedIn. I think it's grown massively over the last couple of years as well, and they're doing things like carousels and short form video content. There's still a lot of utilized features on that platform as well that people don't actively engage with. Um, and then use Instagram as well. Even though it's very indirect to SEO, it's still we're talking about taking a topic related to your niche and building out content on different platforms. So that variation that you might need between you've got a blog article, you make sure you've got your TikTok video, you've got your Google Shorts video, you've got perspectives considered as well, you've got the EAT involved. You're just going to have to go through a bit more a cycle around content production to make sure that you're covering off enough of those things, even if it's a broader topic, or even just to make sure you've got that organic visibility, not just on Google but all platforms.
Correct me if I'm wrong. This kind of SEO, which might be referred to as generative AI SEO, do you have like a checklist for this so that people can just go back to and take off things off their mark and then, kind of make sure that SEO is now optimized perfectly for the new Google?
In terms of checklists, because SG is very much in a testing format and will be until December, that's the real time to go through. And I know they're making active changes, like they made it faster, literally, a couple of weeks ago. In terms of a checklist, it's a combination of the fundamentals, which you can assess quite easily through a site audit. But even just coming down to that EEAT checklist, that we built a couple of those out as well, where you can tick off and just go, all right, cool. Have I shown the user that I've got enough experience? Have I shown I've got the expertise and trust and authoritativeness behind the website? If you're ticking all those three factors off, even like the most minute things of just making sure that you've got a terms and privacy policy on your website, sometimes it just feels so granular, but honestly, it's better to check those off than not have that as well. And working with us, we always make sure we tick a lot of those things off as much as we can in a reasonable space of time as well, considering all the other things you might have to do in an SEO campaign at the same time.
So this might be, uh, excuse me, a dumb question, but then how much different is generative AI SEO with just your typical SEO?
Generative AI SEO would just be considering one part of the rate of change, like being quite dynamic in the way you're producing content as well. But I guess there's a couple of different variations where we've got generative AI in terms of search and what's being presented to users, so optimizing for that, but also generative AI in terms of what you can use the tools for to generate tasks and implementation on your website. So there's two actual different streams, and really it all feeds back to the amount of productivity and the amount of I guess care you need to put behind what you're doing. Like you can use a tool to qualify and say, all right, we need this amount of internal links, we need FAQ generation, write a lot of product descriptions, summarize all these things, write structured data, introduce a chatbot, which is all great for the website. At the same time, consider what an SGE result is actually trying to present to the users, which I think a lot of it actually falls back into a lot of the services that Google uses, like Google Business Profiles as well, really building those out. All those tools and services that Google have, so optimizing for those services at the same time. So there's actually two different streams around generative AI in terms of SEO and optimization at the same time. In terms of that rate of change, it's just pretty crazy at the moment that you could look at the news one day and you think, all right, I can use this, I can use this tool for this thing to optimize for SG, but then SG changes and they go, all right, actually, we're not doing that anymore. And you're like, ah, damn it. But can I still use that tool? I can still pump things out quickly, right? Um, so in terms of volume, I think that's going to be quite a consideration.
This might be a big ask, but considering everything that we have spoken about, would it be possible for you to create an SEO campaign for a hypothetical business?
For a hypothetical business.
Yeah, because I mean, might as well. You kind of won an award for legal services. I thought I could maybe change it up and give you a
Ah,
different
yeah,
sort of.
yeah, sure, yeah.
So
Um,
let's
Go on.
take business as a Pilates class. They're called Pop-up Pilates.
Okay.
How would you start off their SEO campaign?
So are they? How many locations do they have?
So far, just one
Just one
in Melbourne.
in Melbourne. Um, okay, which you wouldn't know any of the suburbs in Melbourne, would you? Just wanted to,
I could guess.
let's say it's around my own brand. We
Right.
actually work with like one studio in my particular area as well. So if I was to talk about a strategy overall, how if they built a website
In the process of
in the
building.
process, so fresh website, I wouldn't actually recommend SEO as an ongoing strategy in terms of, let's say, an investment cost to, let's say, a service provider as us. I would really make sure I engage with a really strong web developer to build out that particular website. Um,
Um,
Tick off all the things, make sure it's really fast. Services pages, so if they just do Pilates, make sure Pilates classes is at the top for sure. If that's one of their main services, have they got sub services as well? Do they do anything
they
else?
do, but I might not know what they are. But they have like maybe two extra services.
Two extra services, we build out the pages around that. Google Business Profile, get that up and running, and initially build out a lot of you know test tick off a lot of the features in that, make sure that it's all consistent with the website. In terms of, let's say, taking off EAT would be whatever the business owner, if they were a Pilates instructor, really building out their about us profile and why they started the studio and the intent behind that, their brand purpose, their values, and what they're trying to do. And then launch the website, make sure it's indexed quickly. So you can do that obviously by doing a bit of PR and outreach to get it indexed quite quickly in local news, let's say, and then building out the foundational links around the social media profiles, start posting some videos. And once you start seeing a bit of traction and let's say some visibility on keyword results, even let's say they start ranking for Pilates per rand in the top 100 within that first month, that's a really good indicator that you give that 3 or 4 months, they probably will start building a bit of organic traffic, and then they should start investing heavily into content creation. And it's just figuring out that velocity, like how aggressive they want to be based on the competitors that are in that space. So if they're working against, let's say, one of our clients, they've been doing SEO for about 2-3 years with us, so they probably would have to match that investment level and the
Right.
volume of content and the changes that they're doing as well.
So then two questions here. One is how long will it take to kind of execute that campaign? And two, where all in that campaign can I use AI to help me out?
So in terms of how long to execute that particular style of campaign, I'd say strong. Like if they're really working with
SEO isn't always ongoing, but
yeah, it's an always ongoing, but if they're really trying to generate significant results, give that 6 months to a year. Always a long time from when you talk to people. This takes a lot, but I don't know. To me, I blinked and it's suddenly July, so things really
yeah,
start ramping up. Um, and then where they can use AI is when they're initially building out, let's say, that website, just getting the placeholder text and things like really just done and dusted so they can build on it as well. They don't have to index the website with that placeholder content, but then finding out what key questions, or they could use it for a lot of competitor analysis as well. Hey, crawl this website and find all the topics they've covered in their blog section. Take their sitemap, crawl that as well. Take the next best competitor who you're trying to replicate. Get all the great Pilates blogs. Even go something I like doing as well, especially in Australia, is looking at the US, because I feel like the US has so much more
right.
businesses. Like 20 to 30 times the size of Australia in terms of website scope. So if they're doing something really well over there in a really competitive location like New York, can you imagine the number one ranked location in New York for a Pilates studio? They'll be bringing in so much traffic to their website in such a dense area. Whatever they're doing, it's probably going to really work well in a smaller city like
Right.
Melbourne as well. So crawling that website, looking at the sitemap, looking at the topics they've written about, if they're ranking really well there, if you're mimicking a lot of that strategy, it's probably going to work well here as well.
And this might not be part of the questions we've kind of talked about it before, but what are some SEO specific tools that I could use to pretty much help me out? Keeping AI and ChatGPT away from these tools, though.
So just SEO specific tools.
Yeah, unless AI can help out with SEO in that way. Because I haven't really used ChatGPT to do keyword research.
You haven't used it to do
I
keyword
haven't
research?
used it extensively. I've used it once or twice, and I've always felt like it's decent, but not really that accurate to what I kind of want.
Yeah, I use it for more topics. So, hey, uh, let's say we're writing a topic about, let's say, SEO. Let's take that as a whole topic, or local SEO, something more specific. The Wikipedia page is probably the best and the most, I find to be the most authoritative source of things that logically you should cover. If I was writing about an article about just local SEO as a whole topic, the
Right.
Wikipedia article really covers most of the bases and most of the topics and subtopics under that. So even using that and crawling that and figuring out what entities and topics they've covered in that Wikipedia article is quite useful. So that's from I guess I started talking about AI tools, but in terms of just like normal tools that are coming out, um, like people know the standard ones, say Ahrefs, SEMrush, SEO Surfer, things I
So
like
then
using.
if we go to the AI tools, then are you using ChatGPT or other AI tools to do the SEO research?
For SEO research, so ChatGPT, yes. I've been using Bard a bit. The Bard's interesting because it's actually a lot faster, and you can use. It does have some leverage that is actually part of Google as well, so you can use it for frequent. What do you call it? People always ask questions as well, and keyword variations on top of that. And chat PDF is something I use quite a bit too. Like a good use case I found with that is actually pdfs for legal services, or just really long form content that no one would ever read. Something like a chat with PDF or chat PDF, you could plug that in and then ask it a question. So that's actually what I did with when I was researching about SGE. I got the documentation from Google, I chucked it into chat PDF, and then I asked it questions about it to just get more of the point out quickly.
Right.
And then I used that to build one of my blog articles about the search generative experience as well. So taking really like dry form and long content, and you can use it to glean out the information that's really insightful for your article as well.
So you mentioned Chat PDF. Is it like a plugin that you can use with ChatGPT, or is it a separate tool on its own?
So there's Chat with PDF, which I believe is a ChatGPT plugin, but there's also Chat PDF, which is a tool. I follow the guy on Twitter as well. He's built out this tool, which is really great. Plug in a PDF. I think up to 400 or something pages you can use for free. Then after that, it's a paid tool, and yeah, it's very practical and it's very useful. Um, yeah, something that's just very simple. Take a boring PDF and make it more accessible and conversational, rather than just having to read every single section of it.
Yeah, I see it as a two-way kind of thing where you can learn a lot by using it to kind of read it for you, and then you can ask questions.
Yeah,
And at the same time, like how you use it, you can use it to resample it and kind of create
yeah.
now a new topic or entire new conversation with it. But for you said for topics you kind of use this for, but for keyword research, not really that much, I guess.
Not really that much, because you can ask it, hey, give me some keywords, but it's only really going to pull out a limited amount of information. Especially with ChatGPT, they've got a limited database they can work off. Clustering, really useful. Give it keywords that you've taken from a tool like a SEMrush, Ahrefs, or just from normal keyword research, and just pulling through and just clustering into the right categories as well. Really efficient use of that too. And then asking it like FAQ questions too, like the variations that it might conceive to be useful for a user. But direct keyword research, in terms of volume, competitiveness, it doesn't have that kind of that level of information sometimes.
And for that specifically, we have those SEO tools that you've mentioned.
Pretty much, yeah.
Are there any other, let's say, off the cuff tools that you also use in general, or are these your like main go to?
Main go-to, there's plugins. I use Detailed. That's quite useful for getting heading structure, because if you're looking at trying to create content, the heading structure of the article that's ranking on the first page or position one, let's say, it's probably going to be definitively a pretty good heading structure to utilize. Other SEO tools, in terms of that, yeah, I just like using a really simple heading plugin. Other tools that you can use as well. I like, for me personally, I use a lot of Notion for cataloging a lot of the SEO articles that come out, which is as much reading the information about SEO is as insightful as having a plugin that does the tool as well, because the absorption of information has to be quite rapid.
But one kind of final AI question I have for you is not really an AI, but an anti AI question.
Mm,
With tools like Originality and other AI detection tools, how one trustworthy are they? Two, should people really be using that as a standard measurement for how much AI content is there? And three, if you don't mind, is it really necessary to detect AI in content?
mm. So first question, how credible are they? 50-50. I think they can nail it sometimes and others not. Like with any of the tools these days, it's you're like, but I changed some like one word and suddenly it's completely AI written, and then I change one word back and it's completely human written. I'm not quite sure. You would have to do really long form aggregation tests against that as well to make sure that they were really credible. But essentially what the tools are really looking for is that tonal change, that type of tone that's often used, the phrasing.
Patterns as well.
Yeah, it's just the patterns and the tone changes, but then you can still get around that by giving tools the right prompt as well. So should people really even care? I think to an extent, yes. If they, let's say, all right, if you Googled something and you jumped on that first result, and then you could definitely tell as a human, or I could definitely tell that that was written by AI, and it's just like, I saw an article today actually. It popped into my inbox because I've got Google alerts for search generative experience, and then I found this website from some really random country that had introducing Google 6. They called SGE Google 6, and I looked at it and I went, "There's no such thing as Google 6, or are they talking about the phone?" I thought I missed something. Maybe I have. Maybe I'm just going crazy. But then I looked at it. I'm like, this is just this. They've obviously got a database where they're spinning content and just making up news things that might be relevant. I'm not sure. So yeah. So back to my point is like, if you clicked on the first page result and you could really tell that it was written by AI, then that's a Google problem. Then they have to go, oh, what kind of searches are we serving up to users? Because that's going to devalue their search engine. So Google are a bit of a
Right.
holding pattern where they can't present really bad content. They have, I know they have sometimes, and they do index and rank content that isn't that great. But if people start picking up on that, they're going to move to a different search engine because they can't trust what they're seeing. So should users care? Yes, and they should call it out when they see it. And but if the content's actually really useful, I guess who really fundamentally cares if it's written or utilized? People have utilized AI to write that content, so long as it's actually really valuable and credible, which is coming
Right.
back to what Google are trying to implement into the guidelines.
It kind of comes back to what we've been saying, that if
Yeah,
you do have that human value and expertise, if you do write it with AI, it's completely fine because you're adding
yeah,
in that value. As long as you're not copy pasting content, you should be
yeah,
fine with that.
yeah. You got to be careful, very careful these days.
I was going to ask a bit more about the AI thing, but I am kind of crossing over the 1 hour mark and have like
Hmm.
the last two kind of
Oh
casual
right, yeah.
questions.
Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't think time actually flew that fast. I was like, wait
It
a
did.
minute, we're only halfway done. I don't even have like the rest of the questions asked yet.
Yeah, cool.
So
That's
one
all good.
thing before we can get into that is, did you actually mind getting on a second episode of this?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, obviously,
absolutely.
but like probably a
In the
month
future,
later or
yeah, yeah,
something.
for sure.
An alternative is, do you mind having this kind of topic with three or four other people and do like a roundtable conversation?
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Because we've been trying to kind of start that off in our third season where we have continuously just roundtable talks with experts in the industry. We'll try to keep it topic wise so that everyone who wants to talk about AI can be on one topic. If you want
Yep.
to talk about local SEO, we'll put them in another podcast
Yeah, yeah,
altogether.
bucket them in. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So if you're fine with it, we can probably schedule in and probably ask the questions we were meant to ask in this call.
Yeah, all good.
But yeah, if not, then also that's fine with us too. We'll try catching again another time.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
But the last two questions, let me just run through them. One is, what are your top three books to recommend our viewers and listeners? I would
Yep.
not be surprised if you put iRobot by Isaac Asimov as your top one. It's been my top
uh,
for like a while now.
yeah, yeah. No, actually, like they're actually quite human when I when I think about these things. Um, of what I've read recently, in terms of that, the Culture Code by Daniel Coyle is all about building really strong teams, which I find to be kind of the key to getting any success in anything, whether it be AI or SEO related, is just having a good team culture. Um, Traction by Gina Wicknam, it's all about building traction in things, exactly like we're talking about, putting traction in whatever you're implementing, whether it be through an SEO campaign, AI practices, and things like that. And then, I mean, just product-led SEO. I always come back to that book in terms of if you're if you're at that stage where you're about a year's experience, you know the fundamental concepts behind SEO. That book, when I read that, even after let's say 2-3 years of experience, it was still a great read because you're not reading, oh, I know all this stuff. It's like, yeah, I know elements of what I know what Google Search Console is, but this concept and a way of talking and communicating SEO in a book was just something that I was like, this is something that everyone should really read to just get some that more intermediate advanced knowledge covered off. And you would definitely have to come back to it as well because really everything is based in those fundamentals of it.
And that one's called Product Led SEO by, who
Eli
would be the author?
Schwartz. Yeah.
Eli Schwartz. Right. Like, we are making kind of like a compilation of all these books so that we can just tell you what are the top 20 recommended books by seniors in the industry. Another question that we do have, which we're trying to make a compilation of, is what are three podcasts that you would recommend our viewers and listeners?
3 podcasts I would recommend. Oh, this one, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And most of the time, I
Pod-
keep trying to prompt the guest by saying, "Oh, say SEO on air," but like you said
yeah.
it first, so yeah.
Yeah. The old cheesy plug. Authority Hackers have a pretty good podcast. I find that pretty insightful. The SEO show. I remember watching a couple of people that I really admire in the industry be on there and just listening really intently. It's always good when there's like an SEO themed particular thing, and you're like, they're speaking my language, and especially from myself running an agency, hearing other agency owners speak and things like that. It's always been really good and insightful. So those are two, plus this one as well.
If you didn't mention this one, was there a third one other than that? Or, I mean, we'll happily take that spot for sure, but just curious to know.
Those ones for now. And I think what you're planning for the next season is going to be something quite special. So people should definitely tune in.
Thanks a lot for the call, Lawrence. It's been great. I didn't think 1 hour would go that quickly. If we had more time, we probably should it to a 2 hour podcast. But thank you a lot for that. It was really great.
No worries.
Thanks for watching that episode. I hope you enjoyed. For more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe.